Hey guys, Ron here. I want to do a video for you on some lessons learned here from sales, online marketing, lead generation, real estate investing, cash flow quadrant, some of the good stuff Robert Kiyosaki talks about. Checked out my website and seen the videos also on YouTube of Kiyosaki with the cash flow quadrant. We got employee, self-employed, business owner, and investor. So the sales cycle is something I've definitely learned about. And I think there's only so many leads people can really take on, and you gotta appreciate the fact too that this people that are buying, the consumers or even the business consumer, it just takes time for them to convince themselves and be motivated enough to keep moving forward. And so you just gotta do a lot of follow-up. And I've seen where people have had to follow up every month for 2 to 3 years with some like home buyers, for example, to get them. And even after the 2 or 3 years, they're just now coming to the realization that they need to fix their credit. They need to start working on things. And that's why relationship building is really important. So that's something to keep in mind. So because the sales cycle is so long, it's long with a lot of people, but it's not long with everybody. But some people might only be 2 months or 3 months, depending on if they're further on in the sales cycle, their credit's better, they have a bigger down payment, they've narrowed down the city, their style of house, and so forth. Even when people buy stuff on Amazon and they just buy it in a split second with one click, doesn't mean they weren't researching for 6 months or a year before that happened. It's just what we call the 0 point of sale, the zero moment of truth is actually what it's called. That's when somebody's like ready to make the purchase and they have the information in front of them and they're ready at that moment. So what I will say to you is that when you do the marketing, you want to continue to if you have assistants, you have other salespeople, you want a lot of people working on sales cycles with a lot of different people because of how long that they take. And you gotta build that pipeline, and you got to have it full of 50 or 100 or 200 people. And you just got to keep filling it up. And I call it priming the pump. If you've ever primed the pump when you're drinking water, you prime the pump, and then you get to drink from the water at some point. But once you're drinking from the water, the priming the pump, you never want to stop priming the pump. But it's pretty easy once you're priming the pump at that point. And you don't really mind doing it because you're being satisfied with the water that's coming. And it's pretty effortless. It's really just the friction in the beginning. It's building that momentum up front when you're priming the pump. But once you're enjoying the water, then as you've seen, the pump doesn't take a lot of work. It's like the light follow-up basically at that point. And you see it coming out the other end. That's self-motivating because you know it works. And your confidence builds up. It's a cycle. And you'll see your confidence building up over time as you see closings and sales come out the other end. And for like real estate agents, for example, the checks are $5,000 or $10,000 on both working with buyers and listing houses. So there's a lot of excitement there for them, and it's a big carrot at the end. And that's what keeps them motivated. So, but having talked and worked with real estate agents, and a lot of them that I've known are investor mindsets, and they've been in the business for 12 to 15 years through either mortgages, flipping houses, real estate, agent. What I've noticed is that they realize that you need a pipeline. They have an investor mindset. They realize that things take time. They realize there's a sales cycle. They know that follow-up's important. I reiterate that to them 10 times as much, how important the follow-up is. So, you just want to keep in mind, because that's what's going to separate you from everybody else, is that follow-up. So, and I want to tell you also, don't get discouraged that those sales cycles are kind of long. Kind of long might even be an understatement. So, I mean, I'll walk you through like an example. This isn't an exact example, but this wouldn't be far away. I think it's very possible if I do an ad on Craigslist that somebody sees the ad for maybe a month or two before they finally just like, yeah, you know, my lease is expiring, I really do need to get a place. It takes them a month or two to motivate themselves. Same thing if somebody has a house for rent. It might take them a month or two before they decide, yeah, you know, you're right, I cannot fill up this vacancy on my own, I really need help with it. So a month or two later, they finally call, they ask for help. The buyer asks for help, and we go, okay, let's see if we can get you pre-approved. Well, their credit's not that good, right? It's like, well, you need to wait 3 more months because it's been less than 2 years since your last bankruptcy or foreclosure or whatever. Maybe you need to wait 3 years. You're just now figuring out where you stand with your creditworthiness and your qualifying. So now we're looking at your loan, and we're looking at your credit score. We're looking at your situation, right? So now we're helping you with your credit situation, and we are letting you know where you stand and what you need to do to improve it. And from there, it might be something as simple as 20 points. It might be something like 80 points that you need to gain. And through our experience in working with people that have worked with thousands of these files, we'll be able to know that answer. Well, so at that point, you're still soaking that in, and then we're saying something like, well, now you're gonna have to pay a few $100s up front for starters to fix your credit. And so then that's another realization. Okay, well, you know, I don't probably got to this position because I don't have the extra $300 a month. So now maybe that takes another 2 to 5 weeks before you come up with that money, or maybe you come up with the first month's payment. And so those are things that also take time. And then eventually somebody pays for their first payment and their second payment. They figure out the money and where it comes from. And then they get into a credit fixing cycle. And then they get updates, usually a bunch of paperwork sent out over the next 30 days through some kind of verified mail, certified mail process. And then they try to, you know, remove things off the credit or update information so it's correct, all in hopes of getting your credit score up. And there's been lots of success with doing it. Once you get the credit score up, you know, people move a little bit slow in getting back and the follow-up and everything, and they slow down the process a little bit. So instead of 2.5 to 3 months, this might take 5 or 6 months. And now you've got somebody that's got decent credit scores. It's like, pull their credit. Oh, looks pretty good. Pull their credit. Well, what are we, 8 months into this now? So 9 months into it until people are like fully moving along in the process. And then now you've got a relationship, and they obviously built up trust and they see you're helping them. So now you're taking that and you're saying, guess what? We got you pre-approved. Keep your job. Don't buy any last-minute car, you know, brand new cars or anything like that. Keep your payments down. Keep your job. Keep your hours at your job. Got to make sure everything's just right so it looks good for qualifying for a home. And then from there, you're going to go look at houses. You're going to get some emailed to you. You're going to have to decide how this whole house thing works and what the right price is, and the neighborhood and the school system and your kids, and there's a lot to think about. It's a big decision for you. And you know, you got to know that you're going to live in that area for a long time. It's closing costs and everything, and you're going to resell it at some point. So you know, people can look, if you save a lot of time by looking at them by email, you're going to save a lot more time than literally going out and seeing 50 houses over 4 months. But people have been known to look at 50 houses over 4 or 5 months or even more. Ideally, you want to look at it more up front, talk to the agent, communicate. What is it that I really am looking for here? And then that way it saves everyone a lot more time. Just talking about gas and time and driving around the cities and so forth. Sometimes you want to look in 3 different cities. So now you're looking at different houses. It's a very competitive market in Minnesota right at the moment, based on supply and demand. So it's not uncommon that somebody, you know, looks at 10 houses, writes up a purchase agreement, 5 other people in front of them, somebody else got it, look at another 5 houses, you lost the next purchase agreement because of multiple purchase agreements, multiple offers. So now you're maybe into another month of writing up purchase agreements and eventually getting them accepted, right? Eventually you get that awesome purchase agreement accepted and life is good and you're you're where you want to be. You have this dream home, and the emotions are there, and you're excited, and you got the purchase agreement accepted. You got the job. You didn't do anything foolish, and you're pre-approved, and the bank's eager to lend you money. Can't wait to move in. You're out looking at furniture, hopefully not going to buy a bunch of furniture on credit cards, but you're out looking at furniture and you're getting excited, emotionally involved with the process. And if all goes well, you close in 3 to 4 weeks. Sometimes, back in the day, we had loan people that weren't that good and it'd take months, but I think nowadays they're better, and I think you're looking at 3 to 4 weeks most of the time. So in that case scenario, it wouldn't be uncommon for that to be 10 months from the time somebody first sees the ad on Craigslist to the time they actually close and money comes in for the buying agent, the listing agent, and so forth. The listing agent has their own thing that they have to go through with people talking about putting up their house for sale for 6 months or 8 months before they actually do, so there's a lot of follow-up involved. But the reason I tell you this is, as a buyer, understand that you're going through these emotions, you're going through this thought process, and the sales cycle for you is about you convincing yourself and learning along the way and getting qualified along the way, so it takes time. The listing agent, like I said, they got to convince the seller for 6 to 8 months sometimes before they list the house, and you say you got to fix it up nicer, you got to put some money into it, you got to pay some cleaners, you got to do some stuff so it shows well, so it sells faster. Oh, and your price is way off, you need to bring it down on price a lot, so that's important too. And I just want to also let the buying agent, it's a long process. You saw 10 months right there, right? So what's really important is you got to know this is not like a weekly paycheck, and you got to know that it's a long cycle and that you're going to be filling up that pipeline, and you got to have the mindset to be able to continue to follow up with it. But what's really interesting is you're in that employee, self-employed quadrant at that moment, and when you get some leads here and there, and you're usually creating your own leads from either a BNI or going out and networking with people at meetups and stuff. And at some point you want to be to the business quadrant, which in my mind is when you have the real estate network built, and that's when you start to get business to business leads and referral sources from inspectors, stagers, appraisers, mortgage people, and other strategic partners who you build relationships with that are going to be in the business for a long time. As you saw in one of my other videos, I talked about attrition, and I said, if you had a list and you built all these relationships over 5.5 years, and you lost 1.5% of them through attrition every month, over 5.5 years, if you didn't add any new people, you're at 99% attrition. You lose all of them at some point. So it's very important that you continue to add new people into your network. You want to get predictable income, you need predictable closings, you need predictable sales, predictable follow-up, you need predictable leads, predictable traffic, and that kind of goes along with people as well. And remember, a lot of people nowadays have their own followings on social media, so it's really important to know all these different people. So build your real estate network, realize that it takes time, get those pipelines filled, realize that you're pushing it through the pipeline, you're priming the pump, it's coming back, and eventually you want to be in the investor quadrant. And the investor quadrant's really more where, what I would say is your money, your comfortable emergency fund exceeds that sales cycle. So you have more money than time. So an example would be, and I may update this or edit this at a later time, but I give you that example of how that sales funnel could be 10 months. Sometimes you might get it as low as 6 months. But you need to have some operating cash flow for your business. And not every real estate agent or salesperson or mortgage person runs what they do like a business. It's more like just a self-employed thing where you're just kind of doing whatever you got to do to move money around. So what I'm saying is, if you know that this is going to take up to 10 months for some of these things to close, you're going to be spending money on marketing, right, for 10 months. before closings start coming in and money starts coming in. So you're gonna see a lot of money going out for 10 months before you see it coming in. And you got to keep that in mind as an investor. Even a business quadrant, you're still got to keep that in mind for cash flow. So when you start getting to the point where you're like $500 a month invested in marketing, over 10 months, that's $5,000. $1,000 a month in marketing, over 10 months, that's $10,000. If you don't have $5,000 and $10,000 just kind of inside money as like an emergency fund for operating cash, for marketing for your business, for cash flow, operating expenses, the ebbs and flows, I don't think you're ready to be an investor in your business. You can cut some costs, you can find some extra money every month. I think being conservative is a good way to have some of that extra cash flow, personally. And so if you take those ideas and now have enough money saved up, now you can feel more comfortable about the longer sales cycle and it won't matter to you as much. So allow time for the follow-up. Allow the fact that some leads, there's going to be some attrition and some stuff's just going to disappear from it. And I want you to just keep all of that in mind and just keep pushing forward. Keep building your pipelines. Keep helping other people build their pipelines. Stay very diversified. Build your real estate investor network and keep growing, because it's the best hedge in this economy. Because the best technology, there's a lot of technology disruptions out there right now, from people's incomes going up to robots taking people's jobs at fast food restaurants to real estate's got it coming up pretty soon. So it's already happened with Uber in the taxi business. It's happened with Airbnb in the hotel business. Some interesting things are happening. So we live in a world where I actually just read an article yesterday about some companies. Big Jawbone was one of them. 10 years as a startup. Some of these startups, 3 years to 10 years as startups. And I mean, valuations, Jawbone's was up to $3 billion. Some of these companies, $500 million to $3 billion, and they went belly up. They're done. There's a lot of disruption out there. You got to adapt. And I think it's very important that your hedge against the disruption is to build and strengthen relationships, preferably business-to-business relationships, lead source relationships, strategic alliances. Stick in one vertical if you can. Like, I think real estate investing, real estate's not going away anytime soon. I mean, they're printing houses in 24 hours now with 3D printers, but I still think the people, you know, as Maslow's hierarchy is pretty solid. I mean, people need security and safety as their first level over everything else. So I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon. So having said that, I appreciate you guys watching this video. This video is a longer one, so it's going to be available on Facebook. It's going to be available on YouTube, uploaded to these two. And then, of course, it'll get cut off on Instagram. It'll be a minute long, and that minute video will most likely make it onto Google Plus and possibly Twitter and Tumblr, and probably also my WordPress blog at rhino.com. So I do the 1 minute video on some of the networks where they're maybe a little bit tougher to upload, or Instagram kind of requires that. And then the longer ones where you can store the longer ones on like a YouTube or Facebook. So you guys feel free to connect with me on any channel. I prefer Instagram right now. I really like the supply and demand of the acquisition and the retention, and how it works really well together. So I want to thank you guys again for watching. I got some more videos coming up soon, and I want to teach you guys about growing your business with marketing and recommending that you be around real estate investing. Thanks.